So if you're in SEO or marketing, you know that Google Search Console is everything. It's supposed to be our ground truth, right? The bedrock of how we measure performance. But what if that bedrock is actually kind of shaky? Today, we are digging into a really startling analysis that shows the tool we all lean on might be hiding most of the real story. Okay, let's just rip the Band-Aid off right away with the main claim. According to a deep analysis by Kevin Indig, a wild 3/4 of your data in Search Console is just filtered out. Gone. Before you ever even see it. I mean, that's not just a small rounding error, right? That is a massive black hole in what we think we know. And that, of course, brings up a really scary question for every single one of us. If the main compass you're using to navigate your entire SEO strategy is this broken, how do you know you're even pointed in the right direction? It kind of makes you question everything.
So how do we get here? Well, we've got to look back a bit. Search Console didn't just start out this broken. It used to be our best look at search performance. But a few key things happened that have really seriously messed with its reliability.
You can pretty much pinpoint the start of the trouble to 3 key moments this past year. Back in January, Google rolled out SearchGuard. Now, on the surface, making scraping harder sounds like a good thing, but it also started to cloud what was really going on with traffic. Then, bam, March hits, and the big ramp-up of AI overviews completely changes how people search, throwing click and impression data way out of whack. And finally, in September, Google got rid of a little parameter that data scrapers used, which, again, just changed the data we were seeing. So you see, each one of these things just added another layer of fog, making it harder and harder to see the real picture.
But here's the thing. Those events, they're only part of the story. The real monster in the closet is something Google just calls privacy filtering, and you won't believe the scale of it.
All right, so you might be wondering, how do we even know this data is missing in the first place? It's pretty clever, actually. The analysis just compares 2 different ways of getting data out of GSC. You've got one API that gives you the big top-level numbers for all your clicks and impressions. And then you've got another that breaks it down by every single search query. The gap between those 2 numbers, well, that's the stuff Google is hiding for privacy.
And that gap, well, it brings us to our first jaw-dropping number. On average, 75% of all of your impressions are just hidden. They never show up in your reports. Think about that. For every 4 impressions your site gets, you only get to see the data for 1 of them.
And it's not just impressions either. It turns out almost 38% of your clicks are also being filtered out. Clicks, the thing we all live and die by. Yet more than 1/3 of that data is just gone from the reports we use to make all our big decisions. And here's where it gets really nuts, because those are just averages. When you dig in, the reality is all over the map depending on your site. Some sites are missing almost 94% of their impression data, or, get this, nearly 89% of their click data. For some sites, the gap is just absolutely massive.
Okay, let's peel back another layer of this onion. Because even the little bit of data that does make it through to us is now getting messed up by 2 huge new forces: the explosion of bot traffic, and of course, the impact of AI overviews.
This chart right here just shows the absolute chaos of the last year perfectly. You can see this huge artificial spike in impressions in the middle of the year, all inflated by bots and AI. Then, a huge drop when Google tweaked things. This isn't real growth or decline, you know? This is just pure data volatility, and it's making it impossible to see the real trends.
And while all that impression data was bouncing around like a pinball, look what was happening to clicks. A steady, brutal decline. We're talking down over 56% since the AIOs really started rolling out. I mean, you can't ignore that correlation. It's a straight line. Basically, AI is giving people the answer right on the results page, so why would they click through to your site? They don't need to anymore.
Which, of course, leads to another really uncomfortable question. We already know most of the data is missing, and what's left is being distorted by AIs. But of that tiny slice we have left, how much of it is even human?
So how on earth do you even begin to guess how much of your traffic is bots? Well, the logic here is actually pretty simple, but really smart. First, you look for really, really long search queries, like more than 10 words. Then you find the ones that show up more than once, and the final check, they have 0 clicks. The whole idea is, come on, what are the odds a real person is typing that exact same super long weird query more than once and then never clicking? Pretty slim, right? That smells like a bot.
And when you run those numbers, the impact is pretty clear.
This bot traffic is growing, and fast, up 25% in just the last 6 months. Now, it might look like a small percentage of your total impressions, but it's just enough to make your reports look a little better than they are, throwing off your whole strategy without actually helping your rankings one bit. It's just static.
Okay, so the data's a mess. It's incomplete, it's inflated by bots, it's distorted by AIs. It's easy to feel like, what do we do now? But really, this is an opportunity. It means we have to get smarter. It means we need a whole new playbook for how we measure success, one that stops pretending there's a single source of truth anymore.
So if there is one thing you take away from all this, let it be this. Using Google Search Console as your one and only source of truth to make big decisions, it's not just a bad idea anymore. It's downright dangerous.
From now on, the real edge, the real competitive advantage is going to come from your methodology. The sharpest teams are going to be the ones who build these new skills. You have to learn how to calculate your own site's unique data filtering rate, how to estimate your own bot traffic, and, this is crucial, how to triangulate your data with other sources. You have to look at everything together to see the real story.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. When you realize that the very foundation of your data, the stuff you've trusted for years, is this broken, it really should be a wake-up call. It forces you to step back and ask a much, much bigger question. What other core assumptions that are driving your entire strategy might be built on an incomplete truth, too?